Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Civil War II video. If you don't know what that is, it's a comic book event, but I'm going to be talking about Captain America Civil War because there's some similar things going on, so careful for spoilers from that movie, as well as the first Civil War. If you haven't been reading comics for the last couple of years, because Marvel's movies have been so successful, they're kind of leading the cart now in terms of comic book stories. So even though the comics are separate from the movies, a lot of the energy of the comics flows from what's going on in the movies. So they did a big Captain America Civil War movie, big billion-dollar earning movie. Naturally, they're going to try and find a reason to have a Civil War in the comics. So the first issue just dropped, and as they've been marketing this, it's basically Captain Marvel against Iron Man. They're like the two different teams in this. I'll be getting into story details, so just spoilers from that first comic too. So most of you know a long time ago, comic book Civil War was Team Iron Man versus Team Cap. That's kind of what they did in the movie. This time there is a funny joke about it. They definitely acknowledge it. Iron Man's like, I'm not going to get into it with you, Steve. We've been down this road before. Did not end well the first time. The big point of contention from the first Civil War was the Superhero Registration Act. In the movies, they turned that into the Sokovia Accords. This time around, it's completely different. They try to raise the stakes while at the same time trying to give you a good idea for why each side chooses their position, giving them rational reasons for being at odds with each other. So during the first Civil War, Iron Man was a bit of a dick. He's a little more sympathetic. He's almost like the Captain America of this Civil War, just in terms of his characterization. Captain Marvel almost comes away in this first issue looking like the antagonist, like she's the one that made the bad call and led to terrible, terrible things happening. So at least they're not making Iron Man a dick again. And full context, if you guys didn't read Secret Wars, they completely rebooted their universe. Iron Man, for instance, they took away a lot of Iron Man's money, and now he's running the all-new, all-different Avengers. It's almost like those stories where Wolverine gets paired with a bunch of children, and he gets to be Papa Wolverine, so he's a little more sympathetic, but he's still kind of hardcore. That's kind of what's going on with Iron Man. They softened him quite a bit, so he's not in full-on dick mode. He's not like the man of this issue. Captain Marvel is the one working for the big agency with all these responsibilities, all these problems she's trying to solve. So a solution comes up, and this seeming solution to all their problems is the reason for Civil War II, like the whole reason they're going to be at odds. Because there's a new Minority Report Inhuman. And if you've never seen that movie, Minority Report, it's all about people being able to predict the future, so you try to use that to prevent crimes. So Iron Man cautions against the self-fulfilling prophecy. You see something terrible that might come to pass in the future, so you take steps to avoid it, but in doing so, you bring that event about. Self-fulfilling prophecy. He uses this really hilarious example. Let's say there's a guy here comes running up to us and says, "Oh my God, I just saw a vision of the Hulk making out with Ultron and a baby popped out. And that baby ends up being a reincarnated Hitler." So one, it would be the world's ugliest baby. But two, side note, the thing I love about this is I love the way he tacks on Hitler baby at the end of that, as if a baby between Hulk and Ultron would be a totally okay thing. We don't want to stop this baby from being born, but if it's going to turn into Hitler, then we need to stop it. So like the best homework you can do for this, in addition to like reading all the supporting titles that are going on right now, is rewatch Minority Report. Because as you can imagine, trying to avoid events in the future that might end up happening always leads to disaster. So Iron Man takes a hard pass on trying to use this new Inhuman to stop potential crimes. Whereas Captain Marvel, who has like the weight of the world on her shoulders, her job is very literally protecting the Earth from outside threats. And the whole setup for this is this amazing action set piece at the beginning of the comic where a celestial being comes from another dimension and is destroying the Earth, but the combined forces of all the heroes and all of Earth's magic users led by Doctor Strange are able to banish it back to its dimension. But it's because of this new Minority Report Inhuman. So everyone's celebrating like, oh man, that was such a close call. How did we know to be there in time? Then we learn about the new Minority Report, Ulysses, how he can predict events in the future, and that's where it all starts to go sideways. So a lot of you will probably recognize visual callbacks to the first version of Civil War, subtle verbal references, like Iron Man telling Captain America, look, I'm not going to get into an argument with you. This is not going to end well. We've been down this road before. Then we see what happens to Rhodey because Captain Marvel calls an audible. She finds out about Thanos doing something terrible. They never fully explain what it is that Thanos is doing, only that he's going to do something terrible. So Captain Marvel's like, we're going to use Minority Report to try and stop this. So they take a team, but they get their asses handed to them by Thanos. And a couple A-list characters ends up dying. So the stakes are already really high. Iron Man gets super pissed because he's like, I told you not to do this. So now you can kind of see why battle lines are being drawn, because Captain Marvel's like, we can still use Minority Report because look at things like this big celestial being here. If we didn't know about this before it was going to happen, the Earth would have been destroyed. And Iron Man is kind of like the great power, great responsibility, take caution person in this situation. So one, let me know in the comments, what do you think about Iron Man in this version of Civil War as being the more sympathetic character, in Captain Marvel, who's kind of like the Superman version of Captain America, being the hardliner? And two, what do you think the big twist is going to wind up being? Because Jean Grey is not able to read Ulysses' mind. So I'm like, there's gotta be some twist here. Like the first version of Civil War, Captain America ends up dying, but it turns into this secret Red Skull plot. He ends up getting reincarnated later. So do you think these dead characters will stay dead for a long time? Remember, this is gonna go on for a while. And if you guys missed it, there was actually an Easter egg for the Marvel movies in here, where War Machine asks Iron Man for a new suit of armor. He calls his War Machine armor Iron Man's 80s hand-me-downs. That's a line either from Iron Man 3 or Captain America Civil War, just the 80s hand-me-down armor. But as much of a bummer as it is to see Rhodey go down, I mean, they broke his spine in Captain America Civil War, and now in the comics, they basically ripped it right out, like Thanos punches right through it. There is no way he is going to walk that off. I feel like that's the answer to people not dying in the movies. People always complain the Marvel movies aren't able to kill their A-list characters off because they're such big franchises, they earn so much money on those movies, but the comics do not have that problem. They can kill anybody they want. So R.I.P. Rhodey. That's going to be like the new Marvel Lifetime movie this summer, Iron Man, Not Without My Rhodey, coming to the Lifetime channel next Wednesday. But if you guys haven't read it yet, be sure to check out Civil War 2. If you haven't read DC Rebirth yet, you should read that too. If you don't read a lot of comics, I would at least recommend reading like the big event comics this summer, which is Civil War 2 for Marvel and DC Rebirth. My other favorite comic book right now is The Invincible Iron Man. The International Iron Man is also too. Creatively, the Iron Man comics are just killing it right now. But because Civil War is like their big marquee event this summer, the artwork is just insane. And you look at this and you kind of understand why they haven't surfaced Captain Marvel in the movies yet. She's just so powerful that you have to put her up against Thanos-level villains. They explained it in Captain America Civil War. The reason why you didn't see Thor and the Hulk is because they were too powerful. And they wanted it to feel like people would be able to die. Like most of the people involved in this are A-list Avengers, but they're very human and very killable. When we get to Thor Ragnarok, you'll kind of see that play out on screen a little. The threat level will be that much bigger, like Thor and the Hulk will be fighting way more powerful villains. But let me know in the comments if you guys want me to keep doing comic book videos for Civil War this summer. And I will be doing a Guardians of the Galaxy 2 video tomorrow. They started talking about the villain, they're talking about more Planet Hulk things, so just a whole bunch of exciting Marvel stuff this week. You look at that panel and you just wince, like, ooh, that's gonna sting a little bit. But while you guys wait for my next video to post, you can click here to learn all about the Flash Season 3 Flashpoint. They're adapting some of the comic book storyline, but not exactly. And you can click here to catch up on Game of Thrones. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.